I'm with Vivek Katju, a former diplomat with the Indian Foreign Service. He was a former ambassador to Afghanistan and Myanmar, but Ambassador Katju is actually best known not just because he's a Tribune columnist, but also for his expertise on Pakistan. He was in charge of the Pakistan desk in the Ministry of External Affairs from 1995 to 2001, which includes the Kargil War, of course, between India and Pakistan in 1999, and the Agra summit talks, the failed talks that Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee and then President Pervez Musharraf undertook in July in Agra. And with General Dipinder Hooda, Lieutenant General Hooda was the Northern Army commander from 2014 to 2016, also writes often for the Tribune. Gentlemen, welcome to the Tribune.
Thank you.
And today we are talking on the first anniversary of Operation Sindoor, the conflict between India and Pakistan that started on the night or the early morning of May 7th. It went on for about 3.5 to 4 days, so May 7th to May 10th. And this, of course, was in the wake of the massacre in Pahalgam on the 22nd of April in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir, when 26 civilians were massacred by terrorists from Pakistan. This is a whole year later, and this Tribune Newsroom today is an attempt at understanding what has happened since. So, Ambassador Katju, my first question to you is this first anniversary of Operation Sindoor that we are marking. Now, the operation was undertaken by India to punish Pakistan for the massacre at Pahalgam. Do you think Pakistan has been sufficiently punished?
I won't use the word punished.
Okay.
I think it was a response, a kinetic response, to convey to Pakistan and the rest of the international community that a terrorist attack of the magnitude and the nature of Pahalgam was simply unacceptable. And if you recollect, this kinetic action was undertaken earlier in Balakot, after Pulwama.
2019
February. And before that, there were the surgical strikes in 2016. And the surgical strikes and thereafter Balakot and then Operation Sindoor, I think set a new course of Indian responses to Pakistani terrorism. Before that, there were cases when some kind of action was taken on the LC and across the IB in J&K, but they were not publicized. So I view it in this series, and I think the message which was conveyed to the international community was that India does believe that there is scope for a conventional response under what the Pakistanis call the nuclear threshold.
Yeah.
And we undertook that. Naturally, the international community wants, and the major powers want, that any such conflict should come to an end as quickly as possible because they're worried about escalation. But this was the thinking, and which is now the thinking.
Which is what?
Which is that if there is an attack which rouses passions of the kind that Pulwama did, that Pahalgam did, then India will undertake kinetic action.
Do you agree with this, General, that India should take action if a war of this nature between India and Pakistan, as was during Operation Sindoor last year?
Ambassador Katju has brought out, I think the response options, I would say, are almost written in stone now. As you said, 2016, 2019, and what we saw in 2025, I would say, was significantly different.
In what way?
It was qualitatively different. It was quantitatively different. The scale and scope was much larger. I would term 2016 and 19 as tactical actions, and 2025 as much more strategic. I mean, you are striking Pakistan's heartland.
For the first time, you struck Punjab.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've never struck, because Balakot is Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, right?
And see, what 2016-19 were attacks on the smaller terror camps. Now you are striking the headquarters of Lashkar, you're striking the headquarters of Jaish. So you are telling them that there are going to be more and more costs to be paid for any major terror attack. And I think, and I'm saying it's almost written in stone now, because the kind of standards that have been set, the kind of public acceptance it has, I would say even if there is a change in government, the policy is going to stay.
But do you think Pakistan got this message? When Indian Air Force planes struck at Murid Ke on the first night at the terror camps in Murid Ke, and I think we saw the pictures. In fact, that was quite unusual too, wasn't it? That we saw the visuals of those terror camps and the kind of enormous destruction that had been wrought. Do you think Pakistan got the message that this is something that India will do if Pakistani terrorists strike India?
Yeah, I think that message is gone, that there is going to be increasing cost to what you're doing. Now, we could argue whether Pakistan can absorb that cost and say, look, this much is acceptable to us or not, but that's a different debate on whether they have actually been deterred or not. But certainly, the fact that there is going to be more and more to pay for Pakistan if they continue this, that message certainly has gone home. And I think even after the operation, what Prime Minister Modi laid down those three sort of red lines, that there will be a response. We are not going to get deterred by nuclear blackmail, and we don't distinguish between terrorists and their sponsors. I think also is a fairly strong message that has gone out to Pakistan.
What do you think, Ambassador? You think Pakistan has understood that lesson, that India will not tolerate any more terror attacks?
The problem is that terrorism is now part of Pakistan's strategic doctrine against India. They calibrate terrorism, but I think the very fact that they've taken no action to degrade, if not eliminate totally, the infrastructure of terrorism is indicative that they want to maintain these.
So they would have rebuilt those camps in Murid Ke and Bahawalpur and elsewhere?
Well, in these places, there were these structures of the terrorist organizations. Bahawalpur, for example, the Jaish's structures, and those structures are, after all, what? Brick and mortar, and they can always be rebuilt. So that's not an issue. I think the Pakistanis have understood that kinetic action will be there, and howsoever they may try to show that they've got the better of us or they've got parity with us, they know that this is a dangerous game. And the fact is that over the last year, they've of course been very troubled by their own western frontier. But over the last year, they've not undertaken anything at all. Whether they've learnt a lesson, I think that is difficult to say, because, as I said, if they made this part of their doctrine, then I think General Saab would be in far better position to tell us whether you can easily change your doctrine. Because they think that this is something that they can always, it's a tap which they can open or calibrate its opening. It's stupid, because they paid a terrible price.
In what way?
Look, if you go back 35 years, when the Pakistanis embarked on this terrorist enterprise against us, that was a time when there was some kind of parity between us in economic terms. In fact, if you see HDIs, their indicators in some senses were better than ours. And you see the difference in these 35 years. Today, they are in a macroeconomic sinkhole. I mean, they've gone to the IMF 24 times, and this is they're on their 24th program as we speak. They live on the dole. And surely there would be an element of introspection among those who think that. I don't know about the army chief, or now the chief of defense staff, and the corps commanders, though some of them are thinking generals, there would be this introspection that these years have seen the growth of the Indian economy. They've also seen that India's basic stability has not been impaired, whereas they've gone down all this time.
And we'll talk about the Iran war because Pakistan has sort of come into its own in the last few months as it's tried or appeared to broker the peace between Iran and the US, and we'll come to that. But I want to ask to both of you, General, you remember when the Mumbai attacks took place in 2008, and then of course you had Pahalgam last year, and there was a lot of comparison last year, in fact, when I interviewed you as well, this comparison between Mumbai and Pahalgam. Now, in the intervening years, which is 2008 and 25, so that's about 15, 16 years, and now, do you think that India has learnt the lessons that we should have?
No, surely. I'm saying what we are seeing now is a different approach to how we are going to tackle issues of cross-border terrorism, how we are going to tackle issues of Pakistan-sponsored terror attacks against India, which they have followed as a policy. After 2008, it wasn't as if suddenly Pakistan turned off the tap. They continued to do that. And so, therefore, I think India did have to change its responses.
And if you had struck back, I know it's a what-if question, it's been debated a lot, but having said that, if you had struck back after Mumbai, do you think it would have helped change the course, if you like?
Well, look, 2016, 2019 didn't change the course. I am not sure, as Ambassador Katju is also bringing out, that once you have a strategy around how you're going to use proxy and terror forces, and more as the Indian capability, both in economic terms and diplomatic heft, if I may say, in military capability terms, starts to outstrip what Pakistan has, is there going to be more and more reliance on using proxy forces, more reliance on using terrorism, because directly you can't do anything.
You think there will be more reliance on proxy forces?
So there is this reliance already, Jyoti. It's not as if the reliance is not there. The point is the costs that are sort of being increasingly inflicted on Pakistan and its own internal situation as it is that going to cause an introspection within the Pakistani military establishment that perhaps we need to rethink what we are doing? We have to wait and watch. I don't think that moment has come as of now. Perhaps over a period of time. And my own sort of view, Jyoti, is this, that you may have spectacular, very successful attacks. Really, if we are looking to deter Pakistan, put pressure, it has to be a more sort of long-term, consistent policy, employing your diplomatic measures, your economic pressure, your military pressure. That would, be a more sort of coherent strategy than merely relying on one-off spectacular strike.
What do you think, Ambassador?
I think at the end of the day, the Pakistanis have to come to a realization that the entire approach towards India, this confrontationist approach that they've had, which I believe is rooted in the two-nation theory itself, and therefore it's so difficult to extricate it out of their system, needs to change. Till that happens, they'll maintain this antipathy towards India. In fact, if you see see some of their internal reports, the Abbottabad Commission report, which was available on the net, one page was missing, but apart from that, everything else was available. It struck me very strongly that the report itself assumed that enmity with India or animosity towards India was permanent. And if that is the situation, then while we can maintain, diplomatic pressure, and we should,
General Hooda is
Yes,
talking about a wider array of instruments, if you like, in the Indian arsenal, not just the Indian Air Force striking against Pakistan.
Look, I think there is a political aspect to this. A government, any government, has to show action. Now, before Uri, what was the response? Let's step back. From the early 90s till, say, 2016, if you see that period of over 2.5 decades, we had diplomatic responses. And once the composite dialogue was put in place, then there was a kind of a cycle that there was dialogue, then there was terrorist action, and the only thing that government could do, any government, was to call off the dialogue. If you recollect, the person who practiced a policy of wanting to normalize ties with Pakistan, as perhaps no other prime minister had done, with such, if I use an Urdu word, shiddat.
Atal Bihari Vajpayee.
No, it was Modi ji. If you see Prime Minister Modi, if you see his record from May of 2014 till Uri, despite Pathankot.
Yeah, he does go to Pakistan to attend then Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's granddaughter's wedding in December 2015.
But that came, what did it come in the wake of, Jyoti? I think we often forget this. If you recollect that in July of 2015, Nawaz Sharif and he met in Ufa.
Yeah.
And in Ufa, there was a joint statement. And that joint statement was that the two NSAs, or that the NSAs of the two countries would meet and talk about terrorism. Right? So how to end it. And there was no mention of Jammu and Kashmir in that joint statement. And when Mr. Nawaz Sharif returned to Pakistan, the generals went up in flames. And thereafter, I think Sartaj Aziz, the NSA was to come here, and that got involved in the Hurriyat thing, and it didn't take place, that visit. And after that, the Pakistanis indicated to Mr. Modi that, and Nawaz Sharif indicated to the Prime Minister that it has to be on a wider way. So what does Mr. Modi do? In December, I think 7th, 8th or thereabouts, December of 2015, he sent the NSA and the then Foreign Secretary, Jaishankar, to Bangkok. They met their counterparts. 2 days later, Sushma Swaraj was in Islamabad for the Heart of Asia meeting. And that is the time when on its sidelines, the two countries decided to embark on what they called a comprehensive bilateral dialogue, right? It was a new version of the old composite dialogue. It was across the board.
Right.
Humanitarian issues, resolution, cooperative
So
mechanisms.
Prime Minister Modi was in favor of a dialogue with Pakistan.
Like no one else was. And then to crown it all, he went to Lahore.
When he flew from Kabul to...
On his way back, he went to Lahore. 10 days later, the Pakistanis undertook Pathankot. Despite that, he persevered. The first real issue came when Burhan Wani, when he was killed in July of 16, and the Pakistanis applauded Burhan Wani as if he was the great savior. And then Uri. And that is the time when things changed. And then they've been.
But today, would you say, General, that this, since Op Sindoor, it's a year now that we are marking Op Sindoor, where there's been absolutely no dialogue between India and Pakistan. Even prior to that, after the Pulwama attacks in 2019, February, and then you had the Balakot attacks, dialogue with Pakistan has come to an end, and it's conditional to the end of cross-border terrorism. Do you think that's a good idea? That's a good policy?
Look, I say dialogue is necessary when you are, between two countries, particularly when there are problems. I think the issue here is, what is the basis on which this dialogue can be held? Is there likely to be some progress that can be seen on this dialogue? And on that aspect, I think the way relations are between the two sides, Do you see any sort of meeting point or something positive that can be shown? And if that is not visible, then dialogue for dialogue's sake is also, to me, sort of.
Ambassador Katju is smiling. What do you think, Ambassador? Dialogue for dialogue's sake, or there should be a real conversation?
I would use the word engagement.
Okay.
Now, to my mind, there are three components to an engagement, which were all encompassed in the composite dialogue. First is humanitarian issues, prisoner exchanges, people who stray on the other side of the border to the other.
And we have a lot of that in Punjab, actually. With
Punjab,
people.
exactly. Yeah. Fishermen.
Yeah, fishermen. Yeah.
Fishermen. So on these, I think there has to be a constant contact between the two countries because there are people's lives involved.
So diplomats or officials should be in contact with each other, if only to help out in these humanitarian issues.
This has to be there. I mean, it's these humanitarian issues, and they're across the board. I mean, this has to be focused on. So this channel can't be closed.
Okay, that's the first.
Second is cooperative mechanisms. So Pakistanis have always believed that cooperative mechanisms cannot endure unless you settle what they call disputes. The main dispute being, from their viewpoint, being Jammu and Kashmir. Now, I do believe that cooperative mechanisms require a certain amount of interest in Pakistan that they will gain, and that they can't do without India. There is a section which believes that, but it's a small section. And the next is, to resolve issues, and there's some long-standing issues. There's the Sikh Creek.
So the second one, we should have conversation or not?
We should have conversations, provided they would be willing. I don't think they're willing at the moment. Okay. And the third is a little futile, because as long as there is a danger of terrorism, you can't embark on these major things which have gone on for 80 years.
Okay. I'm going to open this conversation. Who wants to ask the first question?
I'm Sanjeev Singh Baryana, and I'm with the Punjab Bureau. Jalsa, I'd like to ask you that Operation Sindoor is a classic example where the unification of the Army, the Navy, and the Air Forces come into scene. And this theatre is it's coming together from the past few years. Where do we stand now? What's the importance of it? Or is any force being reduced because Army is comparatively being lesser utilized? Do you think so? Is there any change?
No. So let me answer your second part first. The manner in which Operation Sindoor was executed. So obviously there was greater employment of the Air Force, greater employment of stand-off weapons, long-range missiles, etc. And not only the Army, but the Army and the Navy both didn't play such a major role. But I think we shouldn't take this template and say all wars are going to be fought like this, so therefore there is no role for the Army, or the Army's role has reduced. So I think that would be a misreading of how conflicts can erupt in the future. On the issue of jointness, coordination, and integration, I think Operation Sindoor did prove that the three services must sit together, carry out joint planning. What shape and structure this joint coordination should take, I think there is still a bit of dissonance among the three services on that. So they all agree that there has to be jointness, there has to be integrated planning, but whether there should be theaterization, as the Army Navy has been saying, whether a coordination center at Delhi will do, as the Air Force has been saying, these are things I think that still need to be firmed up, and it is time that they are firmed up. We've been hearing about this integration for the last 6 years now. It's time that the three services come together. And my own view is that if the three services cannot come together, then let it be a political decision.
A political decision in what way? What do you think?
A political decision to tell the military, and that's how it's happened, Jyoti. Well, you look at the unification in the British, the integrated headquarters that came up in US through the Goldwater-Nichols Act. What happened in China through the integration was again sort of driven top-down. So when there is some reluctance happening at the military level, then it has to be somebody stepping up, and that somebody stepping up has to be the political leadership.
Yes, Vivek.
Jyoti, all civil and military institutions' first instinct is to protect and preserve their turf.
So the military is protecting and preserving its turf.
Well,
generally.
So three services, because they have been, sort of been independent in their operational planning, in their administration. So to come together and say, look, there is going to be an integrated headquarter which is going to be separate from the three individual services. I mean, we are seeing that reluctance. We're seeing it on the ground. We're seeing the Air Force saying, look, integrated theater command is not a good idea. Which is why I'm saying, look, you can't keep this issue just hanging on. Somebody will have to take a decision. If the three services are unable to come together.
And it's not only military institutions, civil too. You've got to have someone to really give instructions that this is it. And you fall in line, and then they fall in line.
Happily, I hope.
Well, happily or grudgingly, but they do.
My question is really, was Operation Sindoor, if you haven't had the integration yet, and yet you had an Operation Sindoor, which is what my colleague asked, where all these three forces did come together in some way, right? And the Indian Air Force were, bombed the 9 or 11 airfields in Pakistan, as we saw. So this coming together during Operation Sindoor, do you think it worked well, or do you think it should be improved upon?
No, it worked well. But again, as I say, is an 88-hour conflict a template for how future wars are going to take place? And to me, the answer is no, it's not the only template. Another similar crisis may erupt, which is 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. But if you're looking at how wars are persecuted, how wars take place, you will require much greater integration of the Army, Navy, Air Force.
So I'm Mohit Khanna, I'm from Punjab Bureau, sir. There are certain kind of, there is a set of one question, it is for both of you. Sir, there's a contradiction as well. Sir, there's a part of doctrine, you are saying that terrorism is a part of doctrine, Pakistan's doctrine. So at the same time, they are mediating with US and Iran. So, and we are trying to ostracize them, trying to negate them, that it is a terrorist breeding state. How we can move forward, sir, in such a scenario?
No, look, as far as, I don't see why we should take these two issues together, that, Pakistan is a state sponsor of terrorism, and now that they are mediating between Iran and Pakistan, I think there are different reasons why that Pakistan emerged as a state which had credibility, frankly, both with Iran and the US. It has its own internal pressures due to which, it took this mediation role. So I don't know why we should link these two things together. As far as our saying, why should Pakistan mediate and it is this state or that state, I see it more as sort of angst on the Indian side. Practically, doesn't it suit us that the conflict comes to a close for the Indian state?
So we should appreciate
does it suit us that, look, Pakistan should fail but the war should continue? So I'm saying a lot of this is, I would say sort of media driven, and people who are looking at, why Pakistan, why not India?
I think the idea that Pakistan can be isolated is not correct. I've said this in the past, but let me repeat it here. Pakistan has a population of about 24 crores. It has nuclear weapons. It has vast territory. It's also true that at the same time it sponsors terrorism. Now, we have profiled its terrorism, but the fact is that the world does not consider terrorism to be a priority at the moment.
Hello, I'm Vikram Deep, Deputy Editor. My question is for Mr. Katju. So in their recent messages after the Pahalgam anniversary, both the Prime Minister and the Home Minister of India did not mention Pakistan by name. And the Defense Minister, who was in Kyrgyzstan for a conference, he said that terrorism does not have any nationality or ideology. So how do you explain this reluctance to name and shame Pakistan, this reluctance to state the obvious?
I find it very difficult to answer that question. It's only someone who is within the system, and I'm being frank with you, someone within the system who can answer this fully, because only he would know what is in play at the moment. Generally, my experience has been that when relations are in a kind of a situation where you see some openings, etc., you modulate your public statements. Not always, but generally. And that need not be only openings with the principal adversary, but openings in the international community to look more responsible, etc. However, if you see nothing and there is a domestic constituency to look at, then you take a hard position. And I've often wondered if anyone, and let me put it, I've not wondered, but I've often wondered why somebody has not done a study of our responses to, say, our positions on Jammu and Kashmir, in our answers to parliament questions. Our standard line was, of course, there are two UTs now.
Does not arise.
No, our standard line was that these are integral parts of India and that they are under Pakistan's illegal enforceable control. Now, there were times when these answers were modulated. They didn't change the basic position, but they were modulated.
सर माई सेल्फ आतिश गुप्ता फ्रॉम पंजाबी टू सर मेरा क्वेश्चन दोनों से ही है देश की सुरक्षा को लेकर बात करते हैं हमारी पाकिस्तान से बनती नहीं है उधर तालिबान भी डे बाय डे मजबूत हो रहा है उधर चीन लगातार भारत पे अटैक करने के लिए आगे बढ़ रहा है हमारे भारत में अंदर एड ऑन होता जा रहा है क्योंकि इसको लेकर अगर देखें तो भारत की सुरक्षा को लेकर सरकार को क्या करना चाहिए और हमारी आर्मी का क्या जो है उस पर स्टैंड होना चाहिए
See, look, I think the challenges are well understood. Ki we have a problem with Pakistan. Second is we have a problem with China. China has an unsettled border. Pakistan ke saath aapko मालूम ही क्या हो रहा है. Sindoor also showed that this two-front challenge can manifest in a different way. Where people started talking about, look, there is one front. The face is Pakistan, but with the kind of Chinese assistance that is coming, you could well have a situation of one front, two adversaries. ये सब देखते हुए, and I think these, as I said, these challenges are well understood. The government is doing what it can do. The military is doing what it can do to improve its capabilities. ऐसा नहीं है कि we are weak on the Chinese border or there is problem on the Pakistan side that they will, sort of do whatever they want and India will not respond.
So you can do both. You can do Pakistan and China, which is what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So,
and I think there is enough capacity, capability today on both. And we saw that. See, what you saw in 2020 was that after the incursions that took place in Ladakh, the kind of response that the Indian Army mounted, that capacity to be able to build up strength, to be able to improve your infrastructure, improve your defenses, that capacity exists. So it's not as if we are sort of very weak on these fronts and that capacity and capability is not there. वैसी बात नहीं है.
मैं बस जनरल साहब ने जो कहा है वो बिल्कुल ठीक है. इससे मैं कुछ I can't add anything. लेकिन आपने उसमें तालिबान का भी नाम जिक्र किया. तो वो तो इस वक्त तो तालिबान से अच्छे रिश्ते हैं. भारत के तो ठीक ही रिश्ते हैं. अगर रिश्ते किसी खराब हैं वो तो पाकिस्तान के हैं. वो तो तालिबान को पे बमबारी कर रहे हैं अफगानिस्तान में. और अगर आप देखिए तो वो जिस भाषा का प्रयोग कर रहे हैं वो तो स्टैंडर्ड भाषा का प्रयोग है. जो भी आतंकवाद का शिकार होता है वो उसी भाषा का प्रयोग करता है. लेकिन पाकिस्तान के केस में वो आतंकवाद नहीं है. वहाँ पे नेशनल लिबरेशन मूवमेंट है, BLA. पाकिस्तान कहता है कि कश्मीर इज द अनफिनिश्ड बिजनेस ऑफ पार्टीशन. मैंने हमेशा माना है कि बलूचिस्तान इज द अनफिनिश्ड बिजनेस ऑफ पार्टीशन.
So explain this, Ambassador Katju. India is hugely improved its relations with Afghanistan, with the Taliban, Afghanistan, which is an organization or a regime. Let's say it's a regime that has does not believe even in the equality of its own people between men and women. How does a country like ours, and I'm not asking about the national interest answer, but the question is, how does India not say anything to a country, to a regime like this, which lives in the Middle Ages, frankly?
No, we say it indirectly.
How?
Because we are always in international fora, we give full our commitment to the international instruments on human rights is complete.
Hello, I'm Seema Sachdeva. I'm Deputy News Editor and I work in the magazine section. So my question is regarding the name Sindoor itself. Like, it's such a heavy and symbolic term to be used. I mean, like, what was the reason, like, why this kind of, was it to evoke special emotions among the people?
No. So I have no background knowledge of why this name was chosen. Look, the fact also is that there was huge anger in the public on what had happened in Pahalgam, and obviously any political leader is answerable to the people, has to respond to what public sentiment is and carry out. So I would think in line with that, possibly this name was given, and the fact that everybody who was killed in Pahalgam were males, were Hindus except one person. So that possibly is the reason why. Do I see any complete downside in it? I don't think so. What we have chosen in the past are perhaps neutral names for operations.
विवेक दैनिक ट्रिब्यून से हूँ। जनरल साहब, आप 2016 में सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक के आर्किटेक्ट रहे हैं, तो उस समय सेना की मौजूदगी रही है, लेकिन जब ऑपरेशन सिंदूर हुआ, एआई और ड्रोन्स का इस्तेमाल किया गया, है ना? तो जो ये बदलाव हो रहा है, इसको आप कैसे देखते हैं एक सैन्य रणनीतिकार होने के नाते?
देखिए, जैसे जैसे नए वेपन सिस्टम्स आएंगे, नई टेक्नोलॉजी आएगी, तो उसका वैसे इस्तेमाल होगा। 2016 में जब हमने सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक किया, तो हमने स्पेशल फोर्सेस को बॉर्डर के अक्रॉस भेजा था। फिजिकली more than 100 people were across the border. So obviously now there are risks to that कि कुछ हो जाए, somebody gets injured, captured, उसको कैसे वापस लेके आएंगे. Now different technology has come in. So what we saw in Operation Sindoor was जो initial strikes थी, they were all from our side of the border. 155 smart ammunition, Excalibur ammunition जो बोलते हैं, that was launched. Missiles like Hammer, Scalp, Spice, which are long range weapons अपने border के अपने side में रख रही है, and it will absolutely precisely strike the target. So when you have newer technologies, newer systems coming in, how did Pakistan respond? पहले दिन 8th को उन्होंने hundreds of drones they sent. They also didn't cross the border. So when these technologies are available, you are going to use these technologies, and slowly आप देख रहे हैं कि even the militaries on both sides, drones का और procurement बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गया है. Organizations ऐसी बन रही हैं कि drone specific की एक, जैसे एक infantry battalion में एक unit होगी जो drones को handle करेगी.
You know, we speak about more transparency, and of course in the armed forces and in diplomacy, we know that some things you
don't usually talk about, or a lot of things you don't talk about. One of them is that in Op Sindoor, so there was no human engagement, and therefore there were no casualties except in Poonch when there was some shelling and 1 or 2 people died, and some people were injured, several people were injured. But we find that there has been a lot of talk, especially including by Donald Trump, is that the Americans keep saying so many 11 aircraft fell out of the sky, 9 aircraft, 7, 5. Nobody really knows what happened. Do you think that there should be more transparency about what really happened?
Look, I think there are 2 ways to look at it. Yeah, one you can say is, look, there has to be transparency about, particularly you're talking about losses that are suffered. The other viewpoint is, look, a lot of what is happening in these days is also a battle of perceptions and narratives. why should you immediately give a win to the other side and say, oh, you have managed to inflict those losses on us? I mean, Pakistan didn't give out what they suffered. So, I mean, you have to look at it sort of more holistically and see. You know, we talk about transparency on the battlefield because we say, oh, satellites have come and now you can see everything. Everything is visible. Nobody can hide anything. Look at the kind of misinformation, disinformation that came out in Operation Sindoor on social media. Fake news, exaggerated claims. Nobody knew what is true and what is false. So that is also something that needs to be factored in. So I think there are limits, particularly in active operations, as to how much you should say, what you should do. As I said, I mean, why should you give a free win to the enemy?
Now, I have a question for you, Ambassador Katju, which is that, you know, when the Indian Air Force strikes these 9 airfields in Pakistan, one of them is the Kairana airfields, which is near their nuclear facilities, right? Why do you think, well, this question to both of you, why do you think that the Pakistanis were, you know, the fact that the Indian Air Force struck so precisely that airfield, and that is what sort of, do you think that helped in ending that conflict? And what is so special about Kairana? Tell us about the Pakistani nuclear.
No, so they precisely struck the airfield, and they did not sort of. I think there was too much reading into the fact that there is this nuclear facility which is close to the airfield. That would be the case in most countries which have nuclear weapons that are to be carried by aircraft. Those weapons are typically stored close to airfields. You're not going to get a nuclear weapon from 100 kilometers away if it is to be launched by the air. So I would think this there was too much reading into the fact that, you know, we have deliberately sort of struck something near a nuclear site. I think the Indian Director General Air Ops also said, clarified that there was no targeting of the nuclear site. It was the airfield that was targeted.
But having said that, Ambassador Katju, is it true that the Pakistani nuclear program is also, you know, that especially the inner circle is what is sort of, that the Americans have intimate knowledge of that, and actually they are the ones that that protect it in a sense?
I don't think any sovereign country would allow, even Pakistan, would allow another country to intervene in its nuclear program. Now, that doesn't mean that the Americans don't have good knowledge about their program. That's a separate issue altogether. But the important thing to me was that on the last day of the operations, before the cessation of activities, India had conclusively demonstrated its ability to hit any target in Pakistan, and that the Pakistanis could not do anything about it.
Okay.
Now, when narrative setting is done, I think this is a crucial aspect, and this crucial aspect did not, to my mind, get sufficient play. What got play was, and perhaps it was natural, I mean, in the international media, what got play was a debate between Chinese technology and European technology. That got play. Whereas the real story was our capability in degrading Pakistani air defenses, and then on the last day, as General Saab said, from within our own territories, we were able to use our missile capabilities and really degrade Pakistan and tell them that, look, signal to them conclusively that we can get you wherever you are. And that is what also, to my mind, prevailed on the Americans and other major powers to lean on the Pakistani generals, and in fact on Asim Munir perhaps, and say that, look, the Indians are signaling that they are not worried about escalation.
My name is Renu Sood Sinha, and this question is specifically for General Hooda. So after Operation Sindoor was stopped or abruptly or not, I don't know.
Hitesh?
But one question or rather a sentiment which was in most
Media movement.
Indians' minds was that it should have been taken to its logical conclusion. So that was what I would like to know is, was it abandoned midway? Was it taken to the logical conclusion? And the second part is that did we achieve any tangible results? Because the threat of cross-border terrorism is still there. So what did we exactly achieve after Operation Sindoor?
Okay, look, on your first question, I think we can't look at military operations in isolation. Look, all operations are launched for a specific objective, and that specific objective is political.
Right. I think we'll have to leave it there, but I'd like to thank you, Ambassador Katju, for coming all the way from Delhi to Chandigarh for this conversation, for the Tribune Newsroom with all my colleagues here, and to you, General Hooda, for coming from Panchkula to Chandigarh. I'd like to thank you both, and to all you viewers. I know that you have grown up reading the Tribune. The Tribune Newsroom is a brand new property of the Tribune, so please do continue to read us, to watch us, all our 3 newspapers, the Dainik Tribune in Hindi, the Punjabi Tribune in Punjabi, and of course the Tribune. Follow us on all our social media handles and tell us what you think about our work. Thank you so much for watching.